Hello, welcome to this week's Conversations with Marléne and Pascale. I'm Marléne Rose Shaw, therapist, coach, and self-help author, and I help people specifically with confidence and relationships. And I love helping people learn how to stop people pleasing, set good boundaries, have great relationships, and be able to communicate with confidence and be able to speak up and say no and ask for their needs to be met in ways that work really well. Over to you, Pascale.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pascale Lane. I'm a therapeutic relationship and confidence coach, and I help women who are in unhappy marriages decide whether to stay in the relationship and fix it and improve it, or whether to leave and start a fresh new chapter of life for themselves. And specifically in relationships that are neurodivergent and or missing emotional connection.
Very important topic. Okay. So this week, I'm going to be talking about, I'm continuing on the series of people pleasing and the different ways that we people please. If any of you
have been a great series. It's a really great series.
Today and one more next time. And if any of you have taken my quiz, you'll have seen that there are 5 types of people pleasing that I talk about that you can score for, and I'll put a link in underneath so that you can take that quiz if you haven't. So far, we've talked about rescuing and fixing, and we've also talked about conflict avoiding. That's what it wasn't it? So today we're going to be talking about overgiving. And just, what is overgiving? If I say overgiving, what comes to your mind, Pascale?
I think to a point, most people like to give to others, support others, make other people happy. But I suppose in the context of people pleasing, what it makes me think about is going over and above, but significantly to your own detriment, I think. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so important to please other people and not upset them, not let them down, even if it's upsetting you or letting you down.
Yeah,
that's what I kind of think of. I mean, that's probably a bit basic, but
it's kind of a little bit like rescuing, but not quite the same as rescuing. And all these people pleasing things that we do, like adapting and fixing and avoiding conflict, they're all kind of related to each other. And overgiving is a bit like rescuing. There's some slight different things that we do when we overgive, but they kind of overlap. So yeah, when we overgive, we give our time, we give our energy, we might give away, our money, for example. We might give, allowing poor behavior. We're just, I'll give you that, I'll give you that. I'll let that go, sort of thing. But when we overgive, it's funny because I was thinking about, what I was going to talk about today, and what popped into my head was one time when I was about 9 years old. And we moved house, and I went to a new school, and I was really, I was the new kid, and I was trying to make friends, and I was buying lots of sweets for all my friends. And sort of, I learned a lesson at that time. I can't remember exactly what happened, if my mother said something or I just learned something, but I learned that actually I was trying to buy friends, as little kids do that sometimes, don't they? And I went on, and eventually I made friends and everything was fine. But in that moment, I think having that memory of that time, it was classic overgiving. And that's kind of what we're doing when we overgive. We're trying to sort of, make sure that we'll be liked. We're trying to sort of, and we often, it's an off balance, as you say, because I'm all about being kind and being respectful and giving and loving and allowing and, all of that stuff. It's very important, but it's about balance sometimes. If we're giving away too much, And that doesn't lead to a healthy relationship. It leads to an off-balance relationship where we're giving the other person a message through our behavior that they don't need to respect us, or they don't need to prioritize us, not because they're bad people, but we're just saying this is the sort of format of our relationship, you know, so you don't need to put your brain attention onto me because I'll always be there giving to you anyway. So you can put your brain attention onto other stuff and just not worry about me too much. And that doesn't make for a good, healthy relationship.
No, no, absolutely. And so what would you say are the key characteristics? Because immediately I'm kind of thinking low self-esteem, low self-worth. So what would be the key characteristics of somebody who is an overgiver?
Yeah, I think it comes down to why we learn to do it in the first place, and that's, you know, you can get those characteristics, like you say, self-worth, and actually overgiving, like all people pleasing, comes down fundamentally to the child within trying to secure attachment, trying to secure that connection with someone. Make sure you won't run away from me, you won't reject me, you won't abandon me, because I'll make sure, because I'll just keep giving to you. And if I keep giving to you, you'll have a reason to stick around, basically. And
yeah, exactly the same as your sweets analogy at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's and buying is emotive, obviously,
Yeah.
but it is kind of like buying / securing that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that. Yeah, it's buying in that sense, isn't it? Trying to kind of ensure something, you know.
Yeah.
And we learn that as children, you know, we learn all these different people pleasing behaviors as children, that if I do this, then I'll be safe, I'll be secure, this person won't leave me. And actually maybe sometimes it, you know, it does work in childhood, and I can't remember now, but maybe that did get me some friends back then. It doesn't work in our grown-up relationships. That's the problem, because people, you know, our relationships are for the very reasons that I've just described. You know, we end up getting taken for granted, and our relationships are off balance. They're not authentic, deep relationships. Sometimes we learn overgiving because as children we saw our own parents doing it, because they've learned to do it. They do it a lot, and so we get this lesson. We learn this lesson that this is what you do in order to, you know, to make sure that you have that attachment with people, that connection, that relationship with people. So therefore I'll do it because mum and dad always did it, or mum always did it, or, you know, Auntie Jean always did it, or something. So you see that, and as a child, and you learn maybe that's the way to do it. You integrate that into your psyche, that's how to do it. And I think also with overgiving, sometimes we do it because of confusion. You know, people want to have a stronger connection with a friend. Say you meet a friend and you really like them, and you want to have a really, you know, make more of that friendship and have a good, strong sort of connection with them. But there's a sort of a bit of a confusion about how to make that happen. Maybe if you haven't had a lot of experiences of close, intimate friendships before, you might be confused about, well, how do I, you know, you might not understand that it's about showing vulnerability, for example, is one way of really connecting with somebody. But if you haven't got that awareness, you might think, oh, well, I'll just go and buy them things, or I'll just go and, you know, always be there for them, because you think that that's how to, you know, make a good friendship. And actually it's great to do that, but not too much, not overly do it.
So where do you draw the line between somebody who is very generous and very generous like gifts, but also very generous in their time and their energy? Where do you draw the line between generosity and overgiving?
When you say where do you draw the line, do you mean for yourself to know when you're doing that? Or
yes, yeah. Because
because
some of it might be disguised as kind of just like selflessness.
Yes, yeah. It's interesting you use that word disguised, actually, and I'll tell you why now in a moment. But yeah, the where you draw the line, there is no line. There is no line in terms of practicalities. It's not about how much of something you give, how much time or how much money or how much. I think, you know, it's very different in different relationships and different cultures as well. But I think that it's more, you draw the line in here, because in here, you know, if you feel absolutely loving and secure and happy in yourself and your confidence and in this relationship, and you just love to give this person something because you just love them and you just get a buzz out of it, that's one thing. But if there's a kind of a niggling fear in here that says, oh, I have to because they won't like me, or they might reject me, or they won't approve of me, or they'll get upset, or they'll be hurt, or I'll feel guilty. You know, if you've got that fear stuff going on, then that's where the line is drawn, because you know that the reason that you're overgiving is not coming from a place that is going to be helpful for your relationship in the future. It's just going to reinforce that kind of off balance relationship. So it's about what you, it's not how much of something, but it's what you feel. It's what I always say, is it coming from love or is it coming from fear? And I picked up on you saying disguise just now, because, you know, I'm writing this book at the moment, Courage to Be You, and I'm talking about sometimes we kind of have fear disguised as love. You know, it's
absolutely.
fear that's driving us to do something. We think, oh, I'm pleasing this person, I'm loving this person, but actually, is it? Or is it coming from a fear inside? Is it coming from a love inside? And the love is much more about looking at the bigger picture, this conscious kindness thing that I talk about a lot. You know, it's about, well, actually, is it good for me? Is it good for this person? Is it good for our relationship? If I keep giving, giving, giving. And actually, even if you're loving giving something to somebody and you're just the most generous person on the planet, and you just get a real buzz out of it, sometimes even then you have to draw a boundary and say, you know what, maybe I'm making them uncomfortable, or maybe it's not good for our relationship if I'm always the giver. Maybe I've got more money than they've got, so that's not right for me to keep, you know. So it's about actually looking at the much bigger picture, so that it's not fear disguised as love, or it's not misguided, or it's not, it's actually just coming from a healthy place.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So if somebody wants to stop the habit of overgiving,
Yeah.
as you were saying, in order to have more emotionally rewarding relationships, without that imbalance,
Yeah.
what would they need to do? What would they need to be aware of?
Yeah. You might think the first thing is to say, withdraw all the giving, mightn't you? And actually, yeah, a bit, if you really are.
That's
Yeah.
going to be very hard, though, if you're
But
somebody
really,
that's been conditioned to
yeah.
do that, isn't it?
Yeah. So, you know, the first thing a person might think, well, I won't give so much, you know, so I won't be overgiving if I don't give so much. But no, it's, as you say, it's hard to do. But actually, you might want to think about it and notice it a bit, you know. But actually, it's not about that. It's about redressing the balance by giving to yourself more. Because quite often when we're overgiving, we're thinking so much about, oh, I have to keep this person in my life and I have to, you know, I'll keep giving, giving, giving. And we're not actually valuing ourselves. We're not remembering our value of ourselves, and our worth. So actually, kind of the remedy in a way is to give to ourselves more. Because the more we give to ourselves, the more confident we feel, the less that fear of needing that person in our life so that we have to keep giving. And actually, we start to just enjoy having that person in our life, knowing that if they did sort of disappear for a while or something, we'd be all right. You know, we're not driven by fear. We're just actually really appreciating the connection that we have with them in a balanced way. It's a kind of a win-win situation. So really, it's about it's about that. It's about giving to yourself a lot more, and you can give to yourself in terms of, you know, the things you do for yourself. Often when we talk about self-love, people think about what they do, you know, pampering themselves or their health, or, and you can do that. And the other thing is how you talk to yourself. So if you talk to yourself often, every day, in kind and loving ways, talk to that child within you, give them lots of words of affirmation, give them lots of words of love, then the balance equals out, and you don't feel this need to keep giving to somebody else to get that love, because you're providing it for yourself. The other way to break this habit is to actually feel the feels. As I say, some of my clients call it feel the feels, which I love. And by that, what I mean is connect more with your feelings, because that helps to break that confusion. Because sometimes the reason that we're kind of saying, oh, if I give to you, you know, you'll sort of come back to me, is because we're confused. We're not aware of ourselves and other people and the connection on a very deep level. And so we're sort of acting, we're doing things with people. Like, I will give you this thing, and then you will, it's a contract, and then you will like me. And that's fine a little bit. But actually, the more we feel the feels, the more we become self-aware, the more able we are to do that with other people and have those deep, loving conversations, and that ability to say, you know what, I feel a bit vulnerable today, because we're used to feeling our feelings. And when we do that, or I feel joyful, or I feel excited, or I feel, you know, it doesn't have to be vulnerable, but the deep feelings that we feel, positive and negative, to be able to feel those and therefore share those with other people, connects you automatically with them.
Yeah, it does a deeper level of connection. Absolutely.
You don't have to keep giving them things in order to keep that connection going. You can actually just be with them rather than do with them.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really helpful way to stop overgiving as well.
I often therapy myself. So I kind of, if I'm in a situation or a predicament of some sort, I'll kind of have a word with myself. And so why are you doing this? Like, what is the end result? What is the underlying feeling? What is the underlying motivation? And then what? And then what? Yeah. And then I can often kind of, I mean, it takes a bit of practice, but it's actually a really useful thing to be able to do, certainly in this kind of situation. And the other thing I was thinking about, Marléne, which I think would be helpful, if you could explain a little bit about how somebody can, so somebody in this kind of situation, people pleasing, overgiving, establish their own boundaries.
I think that you can establish, I mean, boundaries is such a huge topic, isn't it? I mean, we could actually, we might have a series on boundaries. That would be great. Might do that.
That would be good, actually.
It's such a vast topic, isn't it? And people quite often think of boundaries as, I've got to make up my mind what my list is and then tell people, you know, and it all becomes a bit sort of, I don't know what to do. So, you know, there are various ways to answer that question, but I think it comes back to that, you know, in order to set boundaries, we need to know, we need clarity. Boundaries are not just about, oh, you've disempowered me, I'm going to get my power back. And boundaries are about being very, very, very clear. And in order to be very clear, it comes back to that loving yourself and knowing yourself. Because when you love yourself and you know yourself, then you say, well, I know what my values are now. These are my values. This is what matters to me. And if this is what matters to me, then that's my boundaries. I can start to sort of get that list, get together that list of what I do want from my relationships in my life, from my relationship with myself, how I want to treat other people and how I want other people to treat me. But we need to know what those values are first. We can't just have a sort of You know, sometimes people have this idea of a list of what boundaries should be. You know, like there's a guideline out there, there's some document out there in the ether that says this is how people should be treated. And actually, it's not. It's a personal thing. It's about what matters to you, what matters most to you. So, you know, for example, in terms of giving, I have a thing. Sometimes I'm not great at people's birthdays. I do try, put it in my calendar. It's not my best skill, but I absolutely love now and again saying to my friends, hey, you like that? I'll buy it for you. You know, and that's a value of mine. I'm working on the birthday thing because I know I need to a bit weak in that area. I need to work on that. But you know, also another value is I just like to do that, and that's a boundary for me. It's all right for me to do that. It's not to the point where I'm always doing it, but now and again, you know, that's a value that I'm aware of. And it's about being aware of what matters to you in terms of giving, what you enjoy giving, and what you might be feeling you have to give. And it's understanding that and understanding where you're coming from, and then you can set those boundaries. And you can talk to a therapist about this stuff. You know, it's easy for me to say it here because I'm used to doing this all the time. But in general, it's good to talk to a therapist or a counselor or a coach to get that clarity on what matters to you so that you can set those boundaries.
Brilliant. Excellent. All right. So after this series, we've got a series on boundaries coming up, which will be great.
We've got one more in people pleasing. Next time we're going to do adapting, which is
excellent,
very interesting. And then yes, I think boundaries would be great because it's one of those things that people talk about as if it's just this one thing, and actually it's a huge area, isn't it?
Yeah, fabulous. Fabulous. You mentioned earlier about your quiz. Where can people find your quiz?
We'll put the quiz link in below. When you take the quiz, you'll get a score out of 100 for each of the 5 different people-pleasing types. Most people score quite high for all of them, and higher for some than others. And really, then you'll get taken to a web page with your results and some tips on what you can do about each of those different types. Just as for today, we talked about how to manage overgiving. So you'll get some tips on that, and you'll also get an opportunity to download an action plan, a guide that you can fill out, so you can think about where you're people pleasing, which relationships, and what you might do to start changing that.
Fabulous. Excellent. All right. Wonderful stuff. Thank you so much.
Great to be with you again, Pascale, and look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Take care. Bye.